2025 has seen some incredible running shoes released from some of the top brands in running, and I've been lucky enough to try quite a few of them. In this video, I'm sharing with you my 6 favorite shoes of the year. Now, every single pair has been worn for at least 200 miles, and I've paid for each of these shoes myself. As someone who runs around 125 kilometers each and every single week, I really have put these shoes through their paces. But before we jump in, I want to hear from you. I want to know what's been your favorite running shoe of 2025. Drop a comment in the comment section down below. So let's dive straight in then, and starting with my number 6 shoe of 2025, and it is the Adidas Adizero Evo SL. And this shoe has been everywhere. There's no denying just how popular this shoe has been over the last year. Now, Adidas market the Evo SL as a bit of a jack of all trades kind of shoe. It's meant to handle daily training, speed sessions, and supposedly even race day if you really want it to. Now, I've got a slightly different take on that, but before we get into it, all of the facts and figures are on screen now. At £130, it sits towards the lower end of the daily training market, and in my case, I actually picked up a pair brand new on Vinted for just under £100. Now, aesthetically, Adidas have absolutely nailed this shoe. The colorway I've got, the aqua blue, looks fantastic, and across the board, the Evo SL color options, they're so clean, simple, and really well judged. I've now put over 340 kilometers into this shoe, and durability wise, it's been excellent. There's almost no visible wear, and more importantly, the ride feels pretty much identical to the one which I felt on the first day of having this shoe, which is always a really good sign. Now, although this is marketed as a daily trainer, I've actually ended up using it in a very different way. My idea of a true daily trainer is something that lets you switch off and just run. The Evo SL has a fairly generous stack height, but sits on a relatively narrow platform. And for me, that led to a little bit of instability, especially on uneven ground or some tighter corners. The Evo SL just didn't quite give me that confidence. On top of that, it runs a touch on the firm side, and combined with the narrow arch, I found it a little bit harder to enjoy those slower, relaxed miles. So this never became my easy run shoe, but where it does come alive is where you can start to pick up the pace. The Evo SL uses the Adidas Light Strike foam throughout, which is the same foam you find in their top-end performance shoe, something like this, the Pro 4, and you really feel the benefit of that foam when you're running fast. It's really snappy, it's responsive, and rewards good form, which is why this shoe absolutely excels in speed sessions. Now, fit-wise, Adidas have said they've fixed some of their historic sizing issues, especially after those in the Pro 3, which gave me a lot of issues, but for me, this still runs a touch small. The toe box feels slightly tight, and on longer runs, I've had some blistering, not major, but just some, which is something to be aware of if you are considering this shoe. That said, it's a really, really strong option for track work. It's lightweight, there's no carbon plate, which means that you can really push those paces without relying on artificial assistance. It also can handle longer runs better than you might expect. I've taken out a few times for close to 2 hours with no major issues. Not brilliant, but no major issues. On screen now is my overall rating, but if you are looking for a one shoe that can genuinely cover a lot of the bases, the Evo SL is a very solid choice. And at £130, Adidas have put together a seriously impressive package. It's firmly in my rotation, and despite its limitations, it's a shoe I do keep coming back to. Okay, in at number 5 is a Max Stack comfort first shoe, the Nike Vomero 18. I will be completely honest with you here, after my first 50 kilometers in this shoe, I was very close to calling it a day. But I stuck with it and gave it another chance, and I'm genuinely glad I did. The Vomero 18 sits within Nike's new 3-tier running structure lineup, with this being the Icon model. At £135, it's actually come down in price compared to their previous iteration, the Vomero 17. All the key facts and figures are on screen now, but despite how Nike market it, I don't believe it's a versatile shoe, and I think that's where a lot of early disappointment probably comes from. It is without question one of the most comfy shoes I've worn this year. The problem is, I originally originally bought it expecting to use it for a mix of easy miles and tempo work and potentially some marathon-esque sort of work. And that's just not what the shoe wants to do. My initial issues came mainly down to the upper part of the shoe. There's a lot of padding and thick material inside the shoe, which makes it incredibly warm, especially in the summer months when you're trying to run at those faster paces. Because of that, I also felt there was a fairly high risk of blistering, which was a bit of early concern. That said, once you're moving, it does feel noticeably lighter than it actually weighs. It is quite a heavy shoe, but it doesn't feel that way. Where the Vomero 18 really does come into its own is when your legs are tired and you just need some maximum cushion just to give you some support. It feels completely different to something like the Evo SL. The wide outsole gives you loads of stability, and that makes it an ideal easy run shoe. When I'm running easy, I don't want to think too much about form or foot placement or even stability, and that's exactly what I found with the Evo SL. I just don't trust that narrow arch. On the flip side of that, with the Vomero 18, everything feels cruisy and effortless over those slower, easier miles. You can literally just switch off and just run. Even the colorways are a little bit funky, but they do somehow work really well with the overall vibe of the shoe. Underfoot, Nike have gone for a combination of their two main compounds, the React X and the Zoom X. The React X is that more durable foam, while the Zoom X is their highly responsive race day foam, the sort of stuff you find in the Alphafly or the Vaporfly models. Now, for a shoe that really doesn't want to go fast, I'm still not entirely sure why there is Zoom X in here, but it does add a little bit of bounce underfoot. On screen now is my overall rating, but overall, the Nike Vomero 18 is a very one-dimensional shoe, and that's not a bad thing. It's a brilliant option for easy runs. It feels light underfoot, lighter than the scales, and with around 850 kilometers on the clock, it's held extremely well over that period. The cushioned, bouncy ride genuinely looks after your legs, and for that specific job, it does it really well. A really good shoe. Okay, in at number 4 is a shoe I've really grown to love, the On Cloudmonster 2. This is one of those shoes that just works for me. It really isn't flashy. It's not trying to be something it's not, but every time I lace up, I enjoy the run. The Cloudmonster 2 is very much a max cushion daily trainer, but unlike some shoes in the category, it delivers a notably firmer ride. All the specs and figures are on screen now, but the key takeaway for me with this shoe is it sits in a really nice middle ground, cushioned enough to protect your legs, but firm enough and stable enough to keep things feeling controlled and push the paces if required. I've now run a total of 377 kilometers in this pair, and performance-wise, it still feels solid. There's no dramatic loss of pop or structure, and durability has been exactly what you'd expect from this price point. It's a shoe I'm happy reaching for on regular training days, especially when I want something predictable underfoot. Now, the ride is where this shoe really stands out. That firmer feel won't be for everyone, but it works for me incredibly well. It gives you a sense of stability and confidence, particularly in those longer runs or when your legs are starting to fatigue. It doesn't feel soft or squishy, and it never feels unstable. It just rolls through each stride in a really dependable way. Upper-wise, this is probably my only real criticism. When you really tie those laces down tight, the shoe can look a bit awkward. Once it bunches up, it doesn't look the cleanest when you're looking down at your feet. That said, in terms of comfort and lockdown, I've got no major complaints whatsoever. It's more of an aesthetic issue than a functional one. Despite that, I genuinely love running in this shoe. It's comfortable, it's reliable, and it feels like a shoe you can just trust. It may not be the most exciting of rides in this list, but it's consistent, and sometimes that's exactly what you want from your daily trainer. On screen now is my rating, but overall the On Cloudmonster 2 earns its number 4 spot by being a no-nonsense dependable workhorse. A firm, stable, well-built shoe that's looked after me for nearly 370 kilometers. I'm very happy to keep it in my shoe rotation moving forward. Now, just before we jump into top 3, I do want to give a few notable mentions that I've just missed out on this list. First up is the KitRun KD900 X2. I've put around 150 kilometers into this shoe, and honestly, it's a really solid performer. It's responsive, stable, and offers a lot of value for money. It just didn't quite get enough miles in to make this list, but it's definitely a shoe that's exciting and worthy of a try. Next up is the Nike Alphafly 3, and it'd be remiss of me to not include this on this list. It's a bit of a special case for me because I ran my half marathon at Barcelona in 69:31 in this shoe. It was released in 2024, so I shouldn't really include this on this list. I'm keenly awaiting the release of the ASICS Superblast 3. That's due to arrive in around February, March time, which could easily shake up this entire list, and the Puma Deviate Nitro 4, which is another really strong contender I'm looking forward to trying. So in at number 3 then is my brand new race day weapon of choice, the Adidas Adizero Pro 4, and honestly, this thing is awesome. Now, full transparency straight away, this shoe hasn't seen a huge amount of miles. I've put less than 50 kilometers into this, but that's completely intentional. As my dedicated race day shoe, I only ever use it on race day or just before for stride. So mileage is always going to be low. I've had a long history with Adidas Pro line. I own 3 different versions of the Pro 3 and I absolutely love that shoe. The performance was incredible. The only major downside for me was the upper of the Pro 3. It generally tore my feet to shreds, especially over longer race distances, those half marathons. That's why I was really curious to see the Pro 4, and so far it feels like a definite step in the right direction. The upper feels gentler and more forgiving underfoot. That said, I'd still personally recommend going half a size up, as it does run on the snug side, especially in the toe box. It's aggressive, it's propulsive, and it absolutely comes alive when you're running at race pace. This is not a shoe you want to jog around in. It's one of those shoes you put on your feet and instantly feel like you're ready to race, and that's worth a mental boost alone. On screen now is my overall rating, but overall the Adidas Adios Pro 4 is an outstanding race day shoe, a refined evolution of the model which I love so much, but it just addressed those horrible, uncomfortable issues. Genuinely a fantastic shoe. In at number 2 is the Nike Vomero Plus. Now, this is a shoe that surprised me in almost the opposite way to the Nike Vomero 18. From the very first run, I could tell this was a more refined, more purposeful version of the Vomero idea, and one that actually fits how a lot of runners train week to week. The Vomero Plus also sits inside Nike's new 3-tier lineup, but unlike the Vomero 18 Icon model, this one feels like it's been designed with a bit more intent. It's still very much a cushion daily trainer, but it's a smarter cushion. All the specs are on screen now, but what stood out straight away is that this shoe feels far more versatile than the 18 ever did. Where I struggled with the Vomero 18 early on, mainly due to the heat padding and the bulk, the Vomero Plus fixes a lot of that. The upper is more breathable, there's less unnecessary padding around the ankle, and overall it's just a better feel underfoot. I've taken this shoe from easy miles through to steady runs and even some longer progression efforts without ever feeling like I was fighting it. Now, that's not to say it's a speed shoe, it's not, but it doesn't punish you for picking up the pace either. I've never felt that overheating or blistering risk that I did with the 18, and the lockdown is much cleaner without feeling overly tight. It's one of those shoes that you can lace up without thinking too much, and that's a big win. Underfoot the ride is where this shoe really shines. Nike have again used a blend of their foams, but here it feels more cohesive. You still get that soft protective cushioning for tired legs, but with a smoother transition and just enough response to keep things interesting. It doesn't feel marshmallowy or dead, just controlled and dependable. Compared to the other cushion trainers, the Vomero Plus feels stable without being boring. The platform is wide enough to feel confident, especially later in those longer efforts. It never feels clunky. This is the kind of shoe you reach for when you're doing the bulk of your weekly mileage and just want something that works. Aesthetically, Nike have nailed this as well. The colorways are clean, modern, and actually look a little bit like a premium trainer, something you'd happily wear outside of running too. On screen now is my overall rating, but the overall Nike Vomero Plus is one of the most complete daily trainers Nike have released in years. If you want one shoe that can handle easy long runs, easy runs, and steady efforts without fuss, this is a seriously strong option, and that's why it lands at number 2 for me in 2025. And finally, for my number 1 shoe of 2025, the ASICS Superblast 2. Now, before anyone jumps into the comments, yes, this shoe technically released in late 2024, but it was almost impossible to get hold of, and I only managed to pick up my pair in spring 2025. Even now, it's sold out in a lot of places, which tells you everything you need to know. The Superblast 2 is a non-plated super trainer that somehow manages to be incredibly lightweight despite being a max cushion shoe as well. For a lot of runners, this could very easily double up as a race day option too. All the key stats are on screen now, but this is a shoe I have so much time for. My current pair is closing in on 1,600 kilometers and it's still going relatively strong, which is honestly ridiculous. Let's start with the obvious negative though, and that is the price point. At £200 here in the UK, this is undeniably expensive for a shoe that isn't technically race legal. But, and this is a big but, durability completely changes the conversation. With my pair approaching that 1,000 mile mark, pound for pound, this might actually be one of the cheapest shoes that I've ever owned. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This is the most durable running shoe I have ever bought. Comfort-wise, Asics have absolutely nailed it. The fit is surprisingly roomy while still feeling secure. The lacing system is solid, not brilliant, solid, and the outsole grip is excellent. I've tested this shoe on wet grass in poor conditions and it's never let me down. There are plenty of reasons why people are already calling this shoe an all-time great, but for me, what really sets it apart is how comfortable it is at every single pace. I do my tempo sessions in this shoe, often running north of 25 kilometers. If I just want an easy, no thinking plod, it does that effortlessly too. I've heard the Superblast described as the holiday shoe before from Ben Parks, so the one shoe you'd want to take away with you if you could only bring one, and I couldn't agree more. Easy runs, long runs, tempo sessions, it genuinely covers all bases. At this kind of mileage, the foam is obviously starting to flatten a touch. At the 1,200 kilometer shoe mark, this shoe was still my go-to for my tempo sessions, often clocking paces of faster than 3 minutes per kilometer. Now, on screen is my verdict, and unsurprisingly, durability dominates the scorecard. The only real downside is availability, and I actually had to buy a pair whilst I was on holiday in Dubai because it was completely sold out here in the UK, and I think that still remains pretty much the case as well. All in all, this is an incredible shoe that genuinely works for every type of run. If you're willing to invest heavily in a trainer, the Asics Superblast 2 will not disappoint. For me, it's the best shoe of 2025 and honestly, one of the best running shoes ever made. So there you have it, my best running shoes that I've worn in 2025. It's been an incredible year for footwear and honestly, I can't wait to see what 2026 brings. But now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment down below on the running shoe that you've worn in the last year that you've just absolutely loved, or something you think is absolutely terrible. Let me know down below in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.